The 2024 Grand Chess Tour kicked off today with the Superbet Rapid Blitz being hosted in Warsaw, Poland. Now, this is the first event in a series of 5 tournaments that will take place throughout this year. If you're new to the Grand Chess Tour, the way the GCT works is that there's a number of regular tour players that are invited to play at least 3 events during the year. They then take their best 3 results, and those get scored to determine an overall tour winner. And at stake is hundreds and thousands of dollars in prize money. Each event on the tour consists of a number of regular tour players as well as a couple wildcards invited individually for each tournament. So today we had the start of the first event in the GCT, the Superbet Rapid Blitz. Playing is none other than world number 1 Magnus Carlsen, as well as the recently crowned candidates winner, the 17-year-old Gukesh Damaraju from India, along with a number of other top juniors. And the format for the event is as follows. The players are going to start with 3 days of rapid chess, followed by 2 days of blitz. And at stake is a prize fund of $175,000, as well as a number of GCT points available to the winners. So today we had the first day of rapid action, featuring the first 3 rapid games out of 9 total. And after the first day, there was a surprise leader, Grandmaster Kirill Shevchenko, originally from Ukraine but now representing Romania, who managed to win all 3 of his games to take the early lead with 6 points. The way the scoring works for the Rapid and Blitz events, since there's going to be 9 rounds of Rapid and 18 rounds of Blitz, is that each Rapid game counts for 2 points. Tied for second place are Magnus Carlsen, as well as the current world number 5 Norbek Abdusattorov, each with 4 out of 6. Jumping into today's games, I'll present you folks with some of the highlights, as the tournament definitely started off with some very, very exciting action. This is the first round between Norbek Abdusattorov and Anish Giri. And in this position, Norbek has built up a nice kingside attack, and here goes for it with the sacrifice, knight takes g7. After queen takes g7, bishop takes h6, he picks up the second pawn. Giri goes queen to a7, looking for counterplay here, but now g5 and white's attack proved to be way too strong. Black took on g5, hg, and apparently the best defense here was the move rook to f1, hitting white's bishop and looking for queen to a1 next move, although even here white's position is still very, very good. After something like queen e2 or rook to g3, white is soon going to start pushing the kingside pawns forward and having a very, very dangerous attack against black's king. Instead, Giri played the move queen a2, but now after f6, once again, white's attack was too strong, and the game just had a fantastic finish here. Queen to b1, rook to g3, covering the h1 square, not giving black any checks. Rook a2 was played, and just a beautiful finish from Norbek, f7, ignoring the threat on c2. After rook takes c2, he just pushes his second pawn with g6, giving up his queen with check. Rook takes d2. He doesn't even recapture with the bishop, which he definitely could have. Instead, he just plays the cold-blooded move bishop to g2, a full queen sacrifice we saw in the first round. But the problem for black is that g7 is a mate threat, and the king just can't escape. White's pawns are way too strong. Bishop f6, for example, white simply pushes g7 anyway, takes, and bishop takes g7 is mate on the board. So an absolutely beautiful combination here to end the game. And here black is simply lost. Giri tried rook takes g2, but after rook takes g2, there are no more checks, and Giri had to resign as his king is just getting mated in the next couple moves. Also winning his first game was Grandmaster Kirill Shevchenko. Here he was playing black against Gukesh, the recent winner of the candidates, and Gukesh had a big advantage in this position. The computer suggests queen to e2, for example, looking for a nice endgame. But here Gukesh blundered with just a couple of seconds on his clock. He plays the move queen to d3. At first glance, it looks like a fantastic queen sacrifice because if rook takes d3, black has back rank issues. But Shevchenko realized in time he can actually take this queen, because after rook e8 check, king to g7, and h6, this is not mate on the board. Black has knight takes h6, which Gukesh obviously overlooked, and had to resign this one as he just gave his queen away for nothing. White has no mate. Black's king is escaping. Bishop e5 check. f6 creates a square for the king. And with that, Shevchenko, the lowest rated player in the tournament, was actually able to win his first game. Also, in round one, we saw Carlsen against Arjun Erigaisi, another top junior. And in this position, Carlsen was maybe a tiny bit better. He had a chance here with a takes b5 to possibly get an advantage in this position. As White is looking to win a pawn, Black should probably trade queens on b4 and then take back on b5. But then White would go b3, knight e3, rook takes e3, and the engines definitely seem to favor White's position a little bit here. Instead, Magnus played the immediate move b3, where we saw the exchange on e3, and after takes, and c6, Arjun was basically okay in this position and managed to show some good defensive skills and was able to eventually hold on, and this game was later drawn as a lot of the pieces here got traded off, and eventually the players did find themselves in an equal endgame after knight c4, rook e7, takes. Magnus pushed here for a little bit, but ultimately wasn't really able to do anything, and the game was later drawn. Moving on to the second round in the tournament, Norbek would score a second win in a row here against Gukesh, who ended up struggling in the first couple of rounds. Gukesh's last move, rook to g6, ended up being a game-losing blunder, as after the move h4, Norbek is able to kick Black's knight away from g5, force a trade of all the heavy pieces, and finish up with knight to g2, where the problem for Black is that Black is now losing at least one pawn here in this knight endgame. f3, for example, White will go knight f4 check, followed by king to g3 to pick up this pawn. And with that, Norbek found himself in just a completely winning knight endgame, and he was able to convert this one accurately later on and pick up his second win of the event. Not to be outdone, also winning his second game was Shevchenko. Again, one of the wild cards for the tournament. Here, this is a second round game against Pragnananda, and Pragg made a surprising blunder in the opening. This is the ninth move. He played the move bishop to g4, and here Shevchenko found a very, very nice refutation here. Knight takes e5. Quite an original combination. The point after d takes e5 is not to take on b7 right away with the bishop, but to throw in bishop to b4 first, skewering the queen and the rook. Black played c5 here, but ultimately he is losing the rook on f8. Bishop takes c5, queen c7, bishop takes f8, king takes f8, d takes e5. This was all seen in the game. And what has happened is that White has given up two minor pieces, but now has a rook and several pawns, 3 pawns to be exact. So quite a sizable material advantage here for White, and decisive advantage. This game was a little bit back and forth for a while, but eventually Shevchenko did end up capitalizing on his edge and winning this one, as the rooks and pawns were just too much for Black to deal with. Carlsen managed to win his first game of the event in the second round. This was against Wei Yi. Playing Black here, Carlsen just played the move h5, looking to advance on the king side. And here, with not a lot of time on his clock, less than 2 minutes, Wei Yi starts to go wrong. Now, what he should have done is bring this rook back to b3. There was an opportunity here after rook to b3 to kick Black's queen. The point is, after queen to c2 here, which is forced, Black's queen doesn't have another square. White could sacrifice on g5 or on e5. After takes, queen takes e5. This would be a very, very complicated situation, but basically White would have enough compensation here for the sacrificed piece. But down on time, Wei Yi didn't spot this idea. Instead, he goes rook 1 b3. But now queen c1, queen to a7, he goes for it on the queen side. But after king to e6 here, Carlsen is in fully control. Rook takes d7, rook d7. The king on e6 actually covers everything. Queen takes a5, but now g4, Black's counterplay here simply wins the game here for Magnus. The knight doesn't have any great squares, forced to go back. But now queen f4 check, queen takes f2, and it's actually White's king that's way too weak here. g3, nice move, securing the queen on f2, and Magnus was able to convert this one in the endgame with a quick f5, followed by bringing in his knight. And yeah, this was just a decisive advantage for Black. As White's knight on g1 is stuck on the back rank, the knight simply can't get out. And yeah, Black is completely winning, and Carlsen went on to win this one. Moving on to the third round of the day, Noterbeck, one of the two leaders with a perfect 2 out of 2, he ended up losing his third game to Pragnananda. Pragg played a very, very nice game here. Starting with this sequence, he goes rook to f4 in this position with the intention after d takes e5 to sack the exchange on f6, a fairly thematic sacrifice, leaving black's king long-term weak. Here, the best move for white, according to the engines, was queen f5, bringing the queen in first before looking to bring the other pieces into the attack. Instead, Pragg started with knight to e4 and definitely lost some of his advantage as Noterbeck defended this one really, really well. Noterbeck soon gives back the exchange in order to hold on to the king side here. And objectively, black was close to holding, but essentially Pragg was kind of pushing the whole time in this one with just a very, very pleasant position, better structure, good knight against bishop. Eventually, we do get a couple of trades, though, as the players get into this queen endgame, where white has an extra pawn. It's not the healthiest extra pawn, but it is extra, and Pragg eventually grinds this one out to a win. It takes a bunch of moves here. I'll play through some of them for you all, but yeah, a lot of work had to be done. This was rapid chess, so the time control was 15 plus 10, meaning the players get a 10-second increment after each move. This allows the players to build up some time and really try to convert these endgames with the utmost precision. Eventually, the key mistake from Noterbeck happens here after queen to d7. Very, very difficult endgame to hold, but now Pragg is able to come in with queen e5 and king to f4, and this ends up being decisive as white's king is able to penetrate into black's camp. He takes the f5 pawn, and here after queen e7 check and king to h6, Noterbeck had to resign as black is getting mated, either with queen g7 or with queen e8 here. The king on h6 is safe from any checks, and it's all over. So since Noterbeck lost his third game, this allowed Shevchenko to actually take the sole lead in the event. He had a pretty balanced game here against Vincent Keimer, another top junior in the tournament. But here Vincent made a very surprising blunder, the move rook hc1, allowing black to play f4, pinning the knight on e3, or winning the knight on e3, which is pinned by the rook on the e-file. Perhaps Vincent missed that after rook to c8 here, black can just go back with rook to d8, and now if takes on d8, which happened in the game, bishop takes d8, keeping the pin alive on the knight. And with this, Shevchenko was able to win a full piece in this endgame. He definitely had to work to convert this one, with white having 2 pawns for the bishop and reduced material, but his technique was definitely good enough. And yeah, eventually Shevchenko did win this one, and scoring a perfect 3 out of 3 on the first day to take the clear lead in the event. Meanwhile, Magnus's third game was against Jan Krzysztof Duda. This one ended up in a draw, but it was quite exciting, so I'll take you folks through the critical part in this one. This came out of Open Sicilian, and both players here castled on opposite sides of the board. So a very, very sharp position. Here, Duda initiates the counterplay with a4, leading Magnus to push b4, knight a6. Now, according to the engine, the position is very, very close to equal here, but it's super, super sharp, so one mistake could spell doom for either player. Apparently, Stockfish liked the move b5 here, the idea to kick black's knight back and then play queen to c6, looking for an endgame that would be close to equal. Magnus, of course, had other intentions looking to attack. He goes queen e6. Now rook a7 was apparently quite strong for black, just defending the bishop on e7 and then looking to take on b4 and get the attack going. Instead, Duda took on b4 right away, and here Magnus might have missed a chance of his own to play the move h6. And the point here is to open up the 7th rank. If black goes g6, well then now white can go bishop takes b4, and if queen takes b4, queen takes e7, white is just winning this one because of the mate threat on g7. Black's king is collapsing. Instead, black would have to try rook a7 here, but then c3, white would have an extra piece. Still a very, very complicated position, but the engines do like white. So that might have been a chance missed by Magnus here, who instead took on b4. Then after queen takes b4, queen takes e7, a3, h6. White does have a very strong attack and an extra piece, but Duda is just in time here with a perpetual queen b2, queen d4. There's no way for the king to escape here. King e2 runs into queen takes e4, and the players simply repeated moves and soon agreed to a draw. So with that, Magnus does finish on +1. So 4 points out of 6, 2 points behind the leader, Shevchenko. Tied with Magnus is Noterbeck, who is also on 4 out of 6. So that takes us into tomorrow's day 2 of the event, where we'll see the next series of 3 rapid games. We've got a number of cool pairings, including the leader, Shevchenko, tomorrow having white against Magnus Carlsen in the very first round 4 of the day. Should be another very exciting day at the Grand Chess Tour. I'll be back here for the recap as usual, and hopefully you folks will tune in as well. Until next time, take care.